Our chief guest has arrived. Can we all stand up to welcome him? Please be seated. Welcome one and all to the book release program of Shri Haulianlal Guite today, the 19th May 2017. मैं सबका स्वागत करती हूँ श्री हाउलियानलाल गुइते के पुस्तक लोकार्पण के अवसर पर. It is really nice to see the chief guests, the guest of honor, dignitaries, family, friends, media persons. I welcome one and all. We will now have the book trailer show of Shri Haulianlal Guite, whose book Confessions of a Dying Mind, The Blind Fate of Atheism, will be released shortly by our chief guest. The book trailer show, please.
Philosophical concepts and the soundest scientific theories to bear on the question, has science disproven God? Or is atheism blind instead? Confessions features Galileo Galilei's conflict with the Church, pessimistic inductions threat to knowledge, Kant's Copernican revolution, Popper's falsification, the underdetermination thesis, Occam's razor and Russell's teapot, time travels to Greece, China and Santa Maria, all in layman's language. Published by Bloomsbury and written without needless techno-jargon, these ideas are explored in the near-death experience of the protagonist. If successful, Confessions will resume the Platonic tradition of bringing philosophy to all lay citizens.
An ancient delusion fantasized by our forebears to console their fears. Are there good reasons to disbelieve? Has modern science made him obsolete? Or, when compared, could it be that atheism is blind? These are the core questions explored in this novelization through the conversations of the protagonists. Albert Hans is a man who thinks belief in God is ridiculous, erroneous and dangerous, till an accident changes everything. The accident induces in him a near-death experience which threatens to overturn his worldview when he meets the entity Walker.
A novel that brings philosophy down from the ivory tower to the marketplace. Confessions of a Dying Mind is the world's first philosophical novel on God. Confessions recounts the adventures of Dyers and Walker across space and through time. Elements of mythology, mystery, fantasy, even romance are brought into its central thesis.
I now request Ms. Doni Guite to come on stage and perform a song, You Raise Me Up, a song selected by the author himself. Ms. Doni on stage, please.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdens me, then I am still and wait here in the silence until raise me up so I can stand the mountains. You raise me up to work on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on the shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can
कार्यक्रम के शुभारंभ के लिए मैं बुलाना चाहूँगी मंच पे हमारे मुख्य अतिथि माननीय श्री किरण रिजिजू और माननीय अतिथि श्री डेविड सियमले, our chief guest Shri Kiren Rijiju, Honorable Union Minister of State for Home Affairs, as well as Honorable Chairman UPSC Shri David Syiemlieh. I request both of you to please come here, sir, for the lighting of the lamp. Deep Prajvalan ke liye. I invite them for lighting of the lamp. Lightning of the lamp amounts to awakening of the Atma Jyoti, glow of the soul within oneself. It marks the auspicious start of a program. Thank you. I request all of you to be seated, or the stage, please. Accompanying our chief guest, our guest of honor, is the author himself and Shri Vumlunmang Walnam, who is Chief Vigilant Officer, Textile Corporation. Thank you, sir. I now invite Mrs. Chin, mother of Shri Haulianlal Guite, Mrs. Taching, first aunt of Shri Haulianlal Guite, and Mrs. Awan, wife of Shri Haulianlal Guite, to welcome the chief guest and the guest of honor with a bouquet, a traditional Paite shawl, and B.A. Puandum. The traditional shawl of the Paite because the author belongs to the Paite tribe. And sir, the B.A. Puandum necktie symbolizes achievement in academics. I may be breaking the protocol, but I may please add, the chief guest and the guest of honor are so tall and handsome that it will look very nice on them. Isn't it? Loudly? Sorry if I'm breaking the protocol, but I could not help it. Thank you for accepting my compliment, if I may say so. Now, moving on next, I would like to invite Shri Byaglun Shote, Manager, Corporate Affairs, Hindustan Unilever Limited, to come and address the gathering. He'll be welcoming the August gathering.
A very, very, very good afternoon to all. What a joy. Wonderful to see you all like this, in this place, for this purpose, which Mr. Haulianlal and his wife and his parents joins me to say that this is a day that the Lord had given to us. Come together like this for such a wonderful and a very meaningful purpose is what we should do in life as far as possible. Welcome every one of you from all the hearts I have. Hearty welcome to the chief guest, Shri Rijiju. We have been proud of you. You are to be seen so many times in many, many of the Northeast gatherings. That's the blessings that you receive from the Lord. Please do keep it up. Thank you very much. And the guests of honors and the government officials, senior enough to have spared your time, come over here. We are so thankful. And everybody else, mother, father, children, youth, I thank you all very much and a very, very hearty welcome to all of you. Mr. Haulianlal, some months ago, he did come to my place to work out a program which we are doing right now. He was looking quite not worried. I know there was enough philosophy in his mind. But he was thinking that will this day come really? Now he has seen this come. He must be so happy. Whenever he was slightly confused, he looked into the eyes of his wife. The wife seemed to have said to him, "Don't worry, you will make it." And the greatness of the woman. I welcome all of you to spend time as we have been seeing on the TV. Please be seated, relax, and please do not go away till the program is over. You may please spare your time to have a bite. There's a dinner ready. the high tea was served. I wonder all of us have it had or not. With this, I will not take time. I did say to the author that I will not spend more than 4 minutes and 59 seconds. I will finish now to be faithful to him for having written such a wonderful book. But may I finish my item by reciting a small poem which I did compose myself this morning in my morning walk. It is like this. Mr. Haulianlal and his wife and his parents and my wife joins me in saying, our joy knows no bound. For you all, good people we have found. Have a blessed life and with lots of fun. But, of course, do not leave any good work undone. Thank you very much. God bless. Jai Hind.
I now request Dr. Vijay Tankha, Philosophy Department, St. Stephen College, Delhi University, to come up on the stage for the book exposition.
I would like to thank Mr. Guite and the organizers of this book launch for inviting me to say a few words on this novel, Confessions of a Dying Mind, written by Mr. H. Guite, a former student of mine. Students are a lot like children, and former students are often, for their teachers, like children who have grown up and left, but are still close to them in some way, and whom they remember fondly, even the troublesome ones. For all of us have also been students, and we too cannot forget our own teachers and hope that they think fondly of us. Now, we at the Philosophy Department of St. Stephen's College are likely more than others to consider the successes of our students as extensions of our own, since we have so few students in any particular class. We tend to forge much closer ties with our students. Mr. Guite was, in fact, in a class of about 6 or 7. Now, of course, both time and memory erode the bonds that were forged during those 3 years when we would meet almost every day, if their attendance was good, which I'm happy to say that his was. But there are occasions like this one when we can not only savor the successes of our progeny, but also claim some part of it. Now, Mr. Goethe, whose name, in fact, rhymes with the name of the great German philosopher Goethe, I always called him Goethe, partly because I couldn't pronounce his first name. And I often have problems with these long first names of many of my students. Now, he studied philosophy at St. Stephen's just about 10 years ago. And I remember him well for his somewhat ironic and skeptical remarks and his long essays. He was bright, but a little shy, being new, I think, to Delhi and its somewhat different protocols. I will say that he was, as far as our attendance record goes, very regular in classes. And here I think I will make an ethnically and politically incorrect remark by noting that students from the Northeast in general tend to be very conscientious about work and attendance. They may not be as committed to the subject as Mr. Goethe was, or even as adept at it as he certainly was, but they have a work ethic which can only be applauded. This is not, of course, the result of the CBSC courses that they are forced to do, but more probably with the ethos in which they are brought up. Now, ethos brings us to this speciality of philosophy as a subject and its practice in our college, which can take some of the credit of infecting students like Goethe with a lifelong interest in the subject. This ethos, as I think it should be in educational institutions, is the unlikely combination of irreverence and respect. Irreverence in the sense that students must bow to no authority except their own reason and understanding, and respect in the sense that they must be mindful of the rights and feelings of others and their responsibilities as members of a learning community. And so Mr. Guite, despite being plunged in a subject that for the most part is disdainful of many of the claims of religion, a subject whose chief practitioners have been instrumental in the rejection of those arguments brought forward on behalf of theists of all kinds, and some of these celebrated arguments had centuries of development behind them, like the ontological or causal proofs for the existence of God, crushed by the weight of Kant's arguments, or the argument from design, which I learnt in moral science despite its having been undermined by Darwinian and neo-Darwinian models at least a century before. That is, although enthused by the practice of philosophy, Mr. Guite did not, it seems, succumb to its skeptical, sometimes even anti-religious stance. Indeed, it seems to have inspired him in ways that I could not, when dealing with his objections and reservations in class, have imagined. When he first told me, quite enthusiastically, that he had written a novel, and a philosophical novel at that, I was pleased but not particularly astounded, as many of our students have written novels as well as non-fiction. I have a rough count of about 15 or more students who have written more than one book, whom we have taught. There may be more of whom I do not know. So while I welcomed his being able to write while still holding a job, for writing is sometimes a full-time affair, I did not think that this was something out of the ordinary for a bright young person like him. However, when I began reading the manuscript, I realized that here was in fact something unique. Not only was it a philosophical novel, it was really a sort of essay in philosophy. More so, it was the practice of philosophy in a novel form, both because it was a novel and because it was new. Now, many novels are philosophical. Many famous philosophers have written novels, plays, poetry, in which their philosophy provides the frame for both the plot as well as the narrative. Some thinkers have written novels that deal with issues that are central to their concerns, such as the nature of human freedom, the ambiguities of love and friendship, or the darker aspects of dystopian futures. Many works of philosophy are remarkable as works of literature. One has only to think of certain dialogues of Plato's or of Kierkegaard's. Sartre, amongst recent philosophers, as well as Bertrand Russell, in the last century were awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. So Mr. Guite is in good, if not austere, company. But this work, Confessions of a Dying Mind, is in a sense unique in that it is really a work of philosophy rather than literature, as the author himself informs us. The plot simply has a person in a coma in conversation with a voice in his head, which may or may not be an angel or some otherworldly creature. Even the angel leaves the possibility of his non-existence argumentatively open. What follows is something I will leave to the readers of this book. For the plot, simple as it is, has a few twists and turns and keeps your attention from wavering. Further, the author has provided some conceptual summaries, even visuals and diagrams, in good Platonic fashion to guide the reader. And these questions, posed as dilemmas, do not prejudge or even prejudice the reader into accepting one or the other lemma, but bring the issue that has been under discussion into a clear and succinct focus. To delve into some of the central issues that confront us all, the nature of human and divine existence. Further, he has used a classical model in the form of a journey into the other world, which his hero, or skeptical anti-hero, Albert Dyers, this name is full of puns, is like Ur's journey in the myth that Plato tells at the end of the Republic. Dyers also traverses mentally both time and space in the company of a guide, ironically named Walker, because the question is, are they going anywhere at all? Because it's all happening in the mind. The journey is not a description, as it usually is, but an argumentative excursus. So Guite, to my mind, has utilized a central argument in the Western philosophical tradition in its most general application, and this argument is called the reductio. Its full name is the reductio ad absurdum. Once described, one realizes how obviously and familiar it is. Take an opponent's thesis at face value. show that if it is true, as the opponent naturally thinks it is, then it has unacceptable consequences for the opponent. The thesis and its consequences cannot both be true. So the opponent has to withdraw his thesis. So that's really the model. Now, broadly speaking, the author takes the central claims of the natural science and the scientific method that they follow and shows that one of their supposed consequences, the non-existence of God, not only does not follow, but that these claims are at the very least neutral so far as the non-existence of God is concerned. So broadly, the apparent distinction and disjunction between science and religion forces a false choice upon would-be believers. One can pursue science without questioning the rationality of one's belief in God. Now, this is really to take the bull by the horns. Since the 16th century, all but some fringe elements in philosophical theology have retreated to higher and safer ground in the conflict between science and religious belief. Others have allowed themselves an uneasy truce and strategically were willing to separate the powers of reason from matters of faith. The first, that is, rationality, became the domain of the natural sciences, while the second, faith, was seen as sufficient to provide the dogmatic beliefs of religion, with a cover of respectability, if not actually to move mountains. Now, Mr. Guite seems to have taken up this challenge and has marched into the domains of science and now seeks to overturn it from within. In this, he is of course not alone, but I think the inferences he has drawn from this are unique to him to show that given the dominant self-understanding of the natural sciences, such an understanding is at least compatible with a belief in God, because such a view of science derived from its own tenets does not lead, as might be supposed, to atheism. Atheism, then, he argues, is not on secure foundations, as might be supposed. Will this lead to a renewal of religious belief? It will, if religious belief is in fact affected or undermined by argumentation. This is a much larger issue which needs a few books of its own. Instead, I want to make another point about the uniqueness of this book. Now, usually theistic systems, those that hold the existence of one or at least one or the other God, are under fire because of the difficulty they have in reconciling the goodness and power of God with the evident suffering and injustice in the world. Defenders of the faith have some pretty standard strategies designed to outflank this moral problem. Mr. Guite has instead focused on the much more difficult epistemological problem of the knowledge of God, and therefore the justification of his existence by showing that the natural sciences do not straightaway lead to a disbelief in God. His argumentative strategy is reminiscent of the arguments of the great medieval thinker Al-Ghazali, who in his magnum opus, The Incoherence of the Philosophers, tried to show that using their own logic, the inadequacy of the philosophical accounts of God undermined their claims. Ghazali wrote a dense philosophical text. Guite has written a racy philosophical novel. I think we can look forward not simply to reading it, but also to grappling with the central issues that he has raised about the nature of science and our knowledge of what is and what is not. Thank you.
Now, I would invite our author, Shri Haulianlal Guite, to address the August gathering. मैं अभी गुजारिश करूंगी हमारे आज के लेखक श्री हाउलियानलाल गुइते आज इस सभा को संबोधित करने के लिए. And I would like to make an announcement that our other guest of honor, Shri Rajiv Maharishi, Union Home Secretary, will be joining us shortly. And our other guest of honor, Shri H.S. Brahma and Shri D.S. Punya, due to unavoidable circumstances, will not be able to join us today. Shri Haulianlal Guite is a 2011 IAS batch. He cracked the IAS exam when he was 23 years old. He was ranked 33, and currently he is serving as Secretary, Jaipur Development Authority. Now for the man of the evening, Shri Haulianlal Guite, please on stage.
the Honorable Union Minister of State for Home Affairs, Shri Kiren Rijiju, the Honorable Chairperson of Union Public Service Commission, Shri Dr. David Syiemlieh, the respected secretaries, additional secretaries and their equivalents in the Indian government who are with us today and who are distinguished guests, all other officers at all levels of administration, our political representatives from distant places, including Shri Langhanpao Guite and Shri Thangoswan Guite, who is the chief of the village, of the town that I come from, and are members of the Churchandpur District Council, the most esteemed ladies and gentlemen who have responded to our solemn request to attend this ceremony, and our media persons who act as the eyes and ears of the people. In the name of my parents and the forefathers that came before us, I give you my heartiest greetings. It is with immense joy that I stand before you today. And as I look back at the august crowd, I'm truly happy and delighted and humbled by the stature of those who are sitting before me and on the dais today. For most of you have, in more ways than one, advanced farther in life, career, and age than I have. Were it for any other occasion, I would probably not speak here at all. I'll probably shiver and just shudder deferentially in pride. But it is only because of the humility of our dignitaries, distinguished guests, and other great luminaries who have displayed their humility in accepting my invitation to come that I have this audacity to freely speak before you. And so here I am. Now as I look back at all the years past, all the toils and hardships that I have faced in writing this book, which stretches over the past 10 years or so, as my professor in college, Dr. Tankha, has said, it has been stretching since that time in college about 10 years back. And as I look at the crowd standing and sitting in front of me today, I'm truly delighted to say it is all worth the labor. It is all worth it. The reason is that it's very simple, and I'm going to explain in a short bit why all of it is worth. But of course it'll be worth still if all of you pick out the book and read it. But that's another thing. But I say that it's worth it not just because it's out of courtesy, but because the labor that I put into making this book is truly immense, and it requires all kinds of thinking, which a normal civil servant does not really think about. And it is this story, this trial that I had faced across the last 10 years, which I want to share with you. 10 and 2 years ago, in 2005, when I came to Delhi for the first time and I was in class 12, I picked up by some chance one book by Will Durant called The Story of Philosophy. It's available in the marketplace, by the stores, street vendors, anywhere. So I just wanted to find out what philosophy is all about. From the first time that I read its cover, its preface, it hooked me into the book, and it hooked me and introduced me into philosophy. Since that time, all the doubts, all the questions which I had been having potentially in me while I was a child germinated, and somehow I decided that I'm going to take philosophy. So there I was when I was admitted to St. Stephen's. But what a shocker it was. I never realized that philosophy could trouble my life so much as it did. And then that kind of forced me to be buried in library. So all kinds of philosophy books that I could come across beyond the syllabus that was offered to us, I picked them up, I swallowed them whole, and I read it, especially the books by atheists themselves, including those names which I already mentioned. Bertrand Russell, who was one of my great and favorite authors, and one of the most famous atheists. So much so that for about 2 years, I actually did not believe in God that much anymore. I became, for all practical purposes, an atheist, at least within. And then while I was in my third year in college, that was the first time I was introduced to the great 18th century philosopher Immanuel Kant. The great philosopher, Immanuel Kant from Königsberg, he effectively saved me from atheism, so that much of my philosophical pursuits and all my thinking since then has been influenced directly or indirectly by Kant. This book is essentially a struggle of my intellectual pursuits that has begun since then. And Kant is the foundation on which this book rests. Then while preparing for civil services, as my manner had become since entering college, I started to philosophize on the entire process of civil service itself. That somehow snowballed into a book of its own, and I started writing a book while preparing for civil services. That book became eventually The Confessions of a Dying Mind. But before I could finish it, in 2010-11, when I gave my civil service examinations, the results was declared, and I was ranked 33rd I was ranked All India 33rd, and that interrupted my philosophical pursuits at least for a while. But while I could not complete my book then, philosophical musings always preoccupied my mind, and I tend to philosophize about even the simplest of things. Like I look at this crowd, and I tend to think, are all this crowd, everybody who gathered here today, if we have different minds, does that imply that all our different minds make us, it is our minds that gives us our individuality? But then, if we say that we are unique in that sense, all of us are also at the same time human beings. But what is it that makes us humans? What is it that combines us together? Is it ourselves, or is it what? But then ourselves always, of course, changes. These are the things that occupies my mind even while I was in the service for the initial part of my career. And while I could not complete my book, while people were having different kinds of hobbies like badminton, playing golf, and other things, philosophical pursuit and thinking about any matters philosophical remained my pastime hobby. So I eat philosophy, I drink philosophy, I think philosophy. It's essentially that. So much that while I was in Ajmer, as Municipal Commissioner in Ajmer Development Authority, I accidentally picked up one book called Sophie's World by Justin Garda. So that was a book which introduced philosophy to its readers through a novelized format. Then I began thinking, I'm going to write philosophy this way as well. Let me try to write it. So that is how I came up with this book, and I decided to rewrite what I had already written. That's how it came into this final form. But my troubles only began then. Writing book, I came to find out, is the easiest part about publication. Next stage is getting a good publisher. Because I would be a first-time author, I do not want to be published by Indian authors. I want Indian publishers. I want an international publisher with good, outstanding reputation. And it was a harrowing experience. It was terrifying, trying to find a good publisher. Any of you who wants to be a potentially good publisher, a good author, will face this problem. Fortunately, however, I found in Bloomsbury Publications an open mind that was willing to try out experimental books. And so it was that on my birthday last year, on 9 September, I got a call from Bloomsbury Publishing House telling me these golden words, Guite, we have accepted your book, congratulations. Now I wish to ask the Lady of Ceremonies a little bit of latitude and give away some of my time to one of my publishers, one of the employees in the publishing industry in Bloomsbury, to say a few words. Mr. Nitin Valecha, where are you, please? Kindly come forward, and I would like to sacrifice some of my time so that he can speak.
Thank you, Mr. Guite, for the kind words. Good evening, distinguished guests and everybody at the event. I represent the publisher at the Bloomsbury, and as some of you might be aware, Bloomsbury is one of the renowned publishers in the trade industry these days. We have authors like J.K. Rowling, Daniel Goleman, several others, Daniel Warrenpil, and several others, to name a few. Considering about the proposal that Mr. Guite, just told, I think it was about 5 months back or so when we had this discussion, and he was just discussing about this book. Personally speaking, I actually do not like novels or philosophy, but the kind of idea that Mr. Guite shared at that moment, that the first meeting was intended to be finished in just about 15 minutes. However, we actually had that meeting for about over an hour, and I have to say I was actually astonished to see the depth of the whole idea, the idea that he actually wanted to write in his book. And I think it gives me immense pleasure today to stand here in front of all of you to, proudly say that, Bloomsbury actually is very glad. We're very glad to have accepted this book from Mr. Guite. And one of the things that actually, intrigues me the most is the conversations between Dyer as the protagonist and Mr. Walker, who's of course a figment of imagination. I perhaps would not want to reveal much about the same. I'm sure I'll leave it to all the readers here. And you can just pick up a book. It's there outside, and you can know it for yourself what lies there in the book. But finally, I would again want to congratulate Mr. Guite for bringing out such a masterpiece. And I think I really wish him best of luck, and I'm really, really hopeful. I know it for a fact that this would really do well. Thank you.
Thank you, Bloomsbury. That's part one of my speech. I want to continue on a little bit for a couple of minutes. As I look back at my life, I realize that there are so many that I wish to thank. But I must mention my parents in particular, for they are the ground of my being, my creators that the Almighty has given to me. So yet again, although I allot myself, since this program is prepared by me only, 15 minutes, and I had spoken only 10, I would like to give a couple minutes to my dad to say a few words. Dad, please.
First of all, I thank the Almighty for this wonderful day. I also thank our Heavenly Father for blessing my son with knowledge and learning. So, for his blessing has made this book possible. I never dreamed such a kind of program will be real as today. Now, Honorable Chief Guest, Guest of Honor, distinguished guest, my dear, near and dear ones, I thank you all for your august presence and gracing this function today. I am especially thankful to those who has given great pain to make a success this program. May God bless us all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
To conclude my time, I must also address one last point which is made by many curious readers. How an IAS officer with such a schedule, especially one who has been posted for the last 5 years in local self-governments, can find time to write a book, and that too such a philosophy book. My senior colleagues in the service has given me a new name. I'm called Philosopher Guru. But the reason I could do this thing is very simple. I consistently cultivate a hobby that I sustain for day in, day and day out for at least 1 hour, which I dedicate to writing, and another 1.5 hours for thinking just before I sleep and when I get up from bed. So philosophy is always my hobby in this sense. It is the oxygen of my mind. I may also add that I'm not the first part-time writer. In this respect, I joined such luminaries like Ayn Rand, Frank Kafka, Virginia Woolf, T.S. Eliot, even the Sherlock Holmes creator author Conan Doyle, who was himself a medical doctor and who was a doctor by day and an author by night. I'm happy also to be in the company of such eminent personalities like Dr. C.K. Matthew, who wrote my books for Word and who was himself the author of so many books, although he was the chief secretary, and Madam Anita Agnihotri, who is in the crowd today also, who has written more than 40 books in Bengali. So I'm happy to be in that crowd. Rajiv Merasi sir, he may or may not be present today, but he himself has written one book recently, and to be joining such crowd is a huge privilege for me. Finally, I must give thanks especially to the chief guest and to the guest of honor for accepting my invitation to come. When I approached Kiren Rijiju sir, he immediately granted me an audience, and he said that it is the least that he could do. In fact, I could not dream of a greater privilege that could be given to such a young officer. And I thank you, sir, for answering my prayer and for coming and gracing us in this special occasion. And also, Sir Syiemlieh, Dr. Syiemlieh, who has been very kind with us. When, just before I approached sir, I was with one IG, Francis, who has been a very helpful person in both personal and professional life, who is personally in connection with Dr. David Syiemlieh sir for much of their life together. And when I approached him, he told me that it would be possible, and I was very skeptical about it. Then he said he would arrange a meeting. I was skeptical about that too, but somehow it happened. So I went to his office with much hope, thinking that the meeting would be over in a couple of minutes. We sat together for, how much was it? 30 minutes or something like that. And I was very, very delighted by that type of engagements which he had with me. We talked about all kinds of things, but what I learned most of all is the humility that he has. Thank you, sir, for gracing this occasion, and I hope that I'll be able to show the same type of humility when it comes for my time. Finally, I want to thank everyone, all the audience who are coming here and making this program a success. May God bless us all, and thank you for listening to 2 minutes more than the time allotted to me.
On lighter vein, Bloomsbury Publishing House, I have a script ready. So fill in the blanks, it's up to you. So this is what I wanted to say to the Bloomsbury Publishing House. It is an honor to invite our guest of honor, Mananiya Adhyaksh, UPSC, Honorable Chairman Shri David Syiemlieh, to come and address the August gathering. A big round of applause for sir, please. Let us welcome him with a big round of applause.
Shri Kiren Rijiju, Honorable Union Minister of Home Affairs. We're missing on the dais 3 IAS officers, and when I got this invitation, I was also found to be part of that category of IAS officers. And though I'm not in their category, I nonetheless hold them in awe, because having never aspired for it and becoming chairman of the UPSC is itself an achievement that I have in bringing many young people like the author of today into this wonderful service. Shri Haulianlal Guite and his dear family, invitees, ladies and gentlemen. When I'm looking at this mic, I wonder whether I'm reaching you, because I always have a problem when I come before a mic and I find that it is a foot or more away from where I'm speaking. Anyway, A month ago, Haulianlal Guite, accompanied by a senior police officer, called on me at my office. And over tea, we discussed many issues, including our dear Northeast, which is home for us three, and concluded by my accepting the invitation to speak on today's occasion. Over the past 5 years in my interaction with young civil servants, I have often encouraged them to find time to write and to publish. And it's not so much my function in the commission, but my function which is dear to me as a teacher and author and writer. It is significant that civil servants reflect on their profession, their postings, and on implementing policy and directions within their conduct rules. Thereby, doing so, they add to our knowledge. Keeping a diary of events and opinion has been found to be very useful in the preparation of a manuscript of one's active life. I particularly recall the much read, enchanted frontiers of my dear and much lamented friend, Mr. Nari Rustomji, the first Chief Secretary of Meghalaya. There was a huge age difference between him and myself, but we had one thing in common, and that was a love for the Northeast and a love for books. And I treasure his memory, I treasure his books, and I want that lesson to go to many young people like Lian, that they should put together not only books and philosophy which we are bringing out today, but a recall of their work in the civil service. It is not often that a young officer will have the time amidst all the work they do to put pen to paper and publish a novel. Haulianlal Guite has achieved the feat. He has synergized his academic studies in philosophy and projected his thoughts in the form of a novel. We look forward to these details of what is sure to be very interesting reading, of the thought and processes of the near-death experience of Mr. Albert Dyers in conversation with the mysterious Walker. And I was a bit perplexed as to why the name Walker was there, or why Mr. Dyers was there, and Professor has explained in part why these two names have been incorporated into this wonderful book. Confessions of a Dying Mind, The Blind Faith of Atheism, is sure to be imaginative, perhaps in part drawn from the personal experience of the young officer, as I gathered in my discussion with Haulianlal, and which he explained a short while ago. It would be interesting to read his references to God in the book, the attributes of God, and the reassuring grace that comes from God, and the change in the faith of Dyers. Functions such as this will encourage Haulianlal Guite to write and publish more books. And after this function, it will be the commence of the discerning readers of the book when passed on to the author and the publisher. And I'm sure Bloomsbury will be keeping a note from tomorrow and the book reviews and whether it's gone into the newspapers and in journals, and therefore put them together and communicate this with the author so he will have all the information to further improve his skills as an author. Today is a day of celebration. Like every day is a day of celebration. But today is special for the young author. Thank you, Haulianlal Guite, for inviting me to this book release, for giving me time to say words of encouragement to you. I see in you an officer who will be upright in life, who will be an example for many around you. Become a mentor to your tribe, your clan, your community, and also in your workplace. I wish you all the very best in life and in your career. I look forward to many more publications in the days ahead. And fortunately, it's Friday today. And we don't really have to go to work tomorrow, and even on Sunday. And on Saturday, Monday, if we've not read the book enough, we can still go to work an hour late, because it's going to be a delightful weekend reading your text. And in Khasi I say, Kublai. In Khasi we say Kublai, and that means God bless you. Thank you.
Like I said before, I'm still a bit nervous to be standing in front of the Honorable Chairman UPSC, Shri Syiemlieh ji, because I have never been able to crack UPSC. मैंने 3 बार ट्राई किया. मैंने खाली प्रीलिम्स नहीं, मेंस तक, प्रीलिम्स के बाद मेंस है ना सर, तो आई कुड क्लियर प्रीलिम्स ट्वाइस. तो मेंस का तो पता नहीं सर, आई कुड नॉट क्रैक. सो आई एम स्टिल नर्वस स्टैंडिंग इन फ्रंट ऑफ यू, बट थैंक यू सो मच फॉर दैट इंस्पायरिंग address. I now invite on stage Miss Namsiam to come and perform a song, Sagmin Lamka. Miss Namsiam, please. Sagmin Lamka is a song which refers to the town Lamka, where the author was born, and it talks about how beautiful the town is. It describes the various facets of Lamka town, which is in Manipur. Miss Namsiam, please.
Vang khopi ni bang lulai lam ka kot ko salpa he luang sim bang apuk na asum tua zang nun nuam le api le zong igam lum bang sung salpa si sana bol sahi say no khang pan lia le tang siam sil su te lung la in khom bang gel thak ve ni ivang ko pi so le gam nit nau ta hi ni bang gel te nui chiam le li pal ding mo Sagmin lo salam ka sinta walin he in pampai song tôi xem ni sagmin le gam le sal pha go kho thang ni gam hum wa le ya swa na hi khang pan lia le tang siam sil su te lung la in khom bang gel thak ve ni hi vang khopi so le gam nit nau ta hi ni bang gel te nui siam le li pal ding mo min lo nan khang vai mangin mel mag lun ta sa min thei bang lo sao chi dong ko dal pe ka va bang tuang hi mai mit suanin sin la ya nai sana ya mo khang pan lia le tang siam sil su te lung la lại hoang vắng gieo thác về ni hy vọng khó tí sâu lấy gầm mịp máu ta đi bằng nhel te nuôi Syiemlieh li phal đi mơ hy vọng khó tí sâu lấy gầm mịp máu ta đi bằng nhel te nuôi Syiemlieh li phal đi mơ.
And our guest of honor, Shri David Syiemlieh, to do the honors. I would like to mention that the traditional shawl which covered the book is a shawl designed by Haulianlal's grandmother. That is the Paite traditional shawl. I would now request Mrs. Haulianlal Guite, wife of Shri Haulianlal Guite, to come and present our chief guest and guest of honor a book each. And I would request, yes, to open the ribbon and release the book, officially releasing the book. Can we have a louder round of applause? Thank you so much. This is a very important milestone in the life of Shri Haulianlal Guite. Thank you so much. Please be seated. I now invite our chief guest, हमारे मुख्य अतिथि माननीय Shri Kiren Rijiju, to please address the august gathering.
Respected David Syiemlieh ji, the young officer, Haulianlal Guite ji, distinguished gatherings amidst us senior officers and people from different walks of life, especially the parents and the family members and well-wishers from Guite's village and his locality, friends from media. It's a wonderful experience to be part of an event where you have to launch a book which is very unusual, and very unusual for me personally. I never thought Mr. Guite will be so philosophical. I went to Mount Abu in 2015. When I landed there in the special helicopter in that mounted, that beautiful land of Mount Abu, he came to receive me. I did not know that he was an IAS officer serving there as SDM. So he said, "Sir, I am the SDM here." Very young, very college-going type. And I think he's evergreen and he will not get old. And very respectful, very dignified at such a young age, and he got into civil service at very young age. I was very impressed with him in the very first meeting. And later on he came back to me in Delhi, and then subsequently he discussed me about this book, and he told me that he's coming out with a book. I thought he would share something of his experiences as an IAS officer, or something about the societal problems which normally an administrative officer will write about. I never thought that he will write something about philosophical issues. And I'm less philosophical in my thoughts and my approach. So I really don't understand how he got into all this. But it's very interesting, as his professor had mentioned about his activities during his college days in St. Stephen's. So I think he had that inclination from the day, as he explained, he picked up a book and then he got influenced by that book. It happens, there's a trigger point in everybody's life. And administrative officer going so deep about a subject which normally we don't dare to venture into those fields is very difficult. And especially people like us, to read something which is very philosophical yet non-fictional. It's a very unique combination. Personally, I don't dispute the existence of the God. I believe that anybody who believes in existence of the God, so it's true for him. So God exists for him. For an atheist, he doesn't believe, so the God doesn't exist for him. How you look at the life, how do you understand the whole thing is depending on how you believe in it. I don't dispute with anybody in the way they think, because the person thinks in a way which is according to his own conviction. The thing exists in that particular way, so he think in that particular fashion. So no point of disputing to it. I think if you go into the deep of this book, it will leave you into certain stage where you will start questioning about many things. So lots of questions will emerge out of this book. It's very interesting. I have not gone through it, but I have got just some pages and some understanding as per his explanation, and then the briefings he had given to me a few days back. But I'm sure in the midst of my very hectic schedule, I should be able to read. And since tomorrow night I'm traveling to Mexico, I'm going in a long flight, so I hope I'll carry this book. So this particular, coming out of a beautiful book, first of all, I must congratulate Mr. Haulianlal Guite for having the courage to bring out in the form of book about what he thought and his own concept. And I must compliment the publishers for coming out with a beautiful book. And what I heard from the publisher, who is least interested in publishing philosophical books, and you persuaded him so much because of the content of the book that he had to publish it. And it's a beautiful, I think it's a very high quality book, and sometimes the quality of the book will force you to read it. And the title, The Confessions of a Dying Mind, I think it's very intriguing. This is enough to generate lots of interest into the mind of the readers. I'm sure people will pick up and read this book, which I'm also going to do it. So, coming from Northeast, from a very remote corner of the country, and getting into the mainstream, the elite service, Indian Administrative Service, and then, cracking the civil service with 33rd rank, that means whether reservation or not, he would have been an IAS officer. It's a marvelous achievement. I must thank his father who is here. He spoke briefly for having such a wonderful son. We are all proud of your son. As a person from Northeast, as a minister in the government, we are proud of your son. He will do much more. There are many things in life we want to question about the existence of so many things. The question here is about something which he has described of the protagonist who faced the death, close to death. I also recalled one of the incidents. I had met many accidents in life. If you die, what will happen? You don't know. if you have experienced the death and come back, then probably you will tell the story. Well, it's a very difficult thing to whom to believe, who has reached up to what stage where he faced the death and has come back to explain to the world that what it feels like. In 1999, when I faced a gruesome, very difficult election, and right after the election, I was traveling in the car, and we met with accident. So my friend who sat beside me, he died. I came to know about his death next day, because I was also in the deathbed, and the whole night I was not in a conscious state of mind. But I recall that I experienced certain things. People said, pick up, idhar khicho, udhar khicho. Probably some people came and pulled me out of the vehicle. So I think those were the sounds. I tried hard because I wanted to know how did my friend died, or do I remember anything of the whole night affairs. Met accident inside Assam and brought into Arunachal hospital. If I were to explain about what I experienced about facing close to the death, then I would have explained this what I'm telling, maybe in much more elaborate description. So that is my experience. You have put a protagonist here and explain it. This will lead to many questions, and very interesting. Because at the end of the day, if you die, then you don't exist. That means it's a questionable thing that up to where and up to what stage you have felt it. So definitely, what I realize is that the blind faith of atheism, as I said, I don't dispute with them either. And at the same time, those who believe in a God, the very interesting question and wonder of this world is really the God. In what form? And at some point of time, when I used to think a lot when I was much younger, in college days. And in a village, in a hill station and in a remote village, the sky is much cleaner. In winter, when you lie down, you see everything. The entire sky is painted with stars. You see everything. Then you realize that this earth is too small to even fit into the existence of the infinite universe. So I start thinking whether the past is longer or the future is longer. There's no comparison because there's no beginning, there's no end. The time is past and it will pass on. So there's nothing that, even if the universe collapsed, the time will go on. So you can't say from where time began or when the time will end. So it's infinite both ways. In the same way, we may have discovered the existence of the solar system, then beyond that the Milky Way, the galaxies. They say maybe sun is 1,000 times bigger than the earth, but again there are stars which are 1,000 times bigger than the sun, and likewise there's no ending. So these are the wonders of the world, and in the midst of that, even if we are insignificant elements in this whole universe, but at the same point of time, we also think that there's something very intriguing. We ponder that what makes us feel that we are important part of this infinite universe. Then you feel that there's something extraordinary. Some people may think that that is godly in nature. So it's good to think that there is something which is ever powerful, omnipotent, who protects us, who guides us, and he is none other than the God. Some people will dispute it. Well, I cannot speak something definite about the conclusion of what I can understand from this book. But as I said, this book will raise many questions, and that is the best part. When you read the book, it will make you ponder about life. It will stir you up. It will make you think more. And I am very impressed with the languages, the way you have put it. And we are all proud that one of our young officers could think so deeply. The depth of this book will be understood if you read it carefully. As I said, I have not read it fully, but this is one book which I'm going to read, because the title, the language, the idea behind writing this book is very unique, as you have explained yourself. And this will make the younger generation a way out, how to go about life, how to think about life, or how to write about a book. It is very interesting. That is why I feel that it's a matter of a great privilege to be part of this evening when our young officer has written such a beautiful book. I will not comment much about this book, but I would definitely recommend that everybody must read it. This book is a must-read book. And once we all read it, then we can come together and then discuss about the book more. Now, if I tell something more about this book, it will be one-way traffic. There will be not many people to respond to it because we have not read it, most of us. But I'm sure with the presence of David Syiemlieh, a very honorable person from Northeast, occupying a prestigious position of the chairmanship, the Union Public Service Commission. We are proud of him. We have very distinguished officers present here. Your professor from St. Stephen's, and the brothers and sisters from Manipur and other parts of Northeast, they have come to witness this event. I would not share much about my thoughts. Rather, I would feel, a privileged person to be part of this beautiful community. We all must share our thoughts, our problems, and to make it as a strength by coming together. And I'm always available when there's something to celebrate about. I want to be part of that event where we feel proud of what we are, where we come from. And India is a diverse nation, and the Northeast, people say that, Northeast should become part of the mainstream. Well, I always say that there's nothing called mainstream in India. Every part of this country, every society, every community is the mainstream of India. We are already part of the mainstream because India is a composite society where all parts of the country, all part of this nation are merging in a nationhood status. And we are part of this great country, and we are proud of you. I'm sure many young students who are pursuing various academic career will get inspiration from this book, and they will also venture out to write beautiful book like this. And my best wishes to Mr. Guite and all the family members and those who have contributed a little bit in publishing this book or in encouraging. And I must compliment your beautiful wife who had come with you to my office, my residence, and then you, of course, the parents. And I must compliment the two beautiful young ladies who presented a melodious song. They have come from, I think, back home and entertained us, made this evening very serene, very memorable. I once again extend my heartfelt gratitude to you and publishers for inviting me for this wonderful evening. And I thank everybody for sharing this evening and to make this occasion very memorable. Thank you so much.
There's a hero. If you look inside your heart, you don't have to be afraid of what you are. There's an answer. If you reach into your soul, and the soul that you know will melt away. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you'll finally see the truth, that a hero lies in you. It's a long road when you face the world alone. Reach a side for you to hold. You can find love if you search within yourself, and the emptiness you find will disappear. Another hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you finally see the truth, that a hero lies in you. Oh, Lord knows dreams are hard to follow, but don't let anyone do them away. Hold on, there will be tomorrow. Meantime, you'll find the way. But a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. When you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and you finally see the truth, that a hero lies in you. That a hero lies in you. Ooh, that a hero lies in you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dhoni. Kipahwaye Dhoni. Some announcement. If you want to purchase the book, it is available outside the auditorium at the registration counter. Book kang kizwa dia hiya onale saksiao siao leo chi konge na hiya. Wailo, we will have some time after the program. So if the media persons wants sound bites from the author, they can have it. And also, the author will be available for book signing. So these are the announcements. I now invite Shri Vumlunmang Walnam, Chief Vigilance Officer, Textile Corporation, to deliver the vote of thanks.
As I stand with thoughts of gratefulness towards all who have made this program a success, the mind also wanders to the eastern corner, Manipur, from which the author Haulianlal Guite and many of us here came from, to Arunachal Pradesh, where our chief guest originates from, to Meghalaya, where our guest of honor, Dr. David, originates from, and it moves on to the western side of the country, Rajasthan, which is the new home for our author. And I mention this to thank all the officers and good people of Rajasthan who have really nurtured Haulianlal from the day he joined the cadre. He joined with some hesitation, but I see the full bloom today. We are extremely grateful. We apologize that we cannot recognize you by name, but definitely all the people of Rajasthan, the Rajasthan cadre officers, we are extremely grateful. We express our thanks to you. And it's the beauty of this country, I say today, that between Manipur and Rajasthan here in Delhi, we have such a wonderful program. I think a round of applause. To our chief guest, Shri Kiren Rijiju, sir, a very special thanks to you. The business of your schedule is well known, well publicized. It's on national TV almost every day. We are extremely grateful that you have taken the time to support this young officer in his endeavor. We are extremely thankful to you. You started your speech by showing your, expressing your ignorance about philosophy, but as you spoke on, I think there's an alternate career available somewhere. Sir, I think it reveals that strength of your understanding, your quick grasp of issues, and we are extremely grateful again that you have made the time to be with us today. Dr. David Syiemlieh, Honorable Chairman of the Union Public Service Commission, sir, we are extremely thankful to you. It is the goodness of your heart, because it is not based on prior knowledge or on the strength of anyone's authority, but really the simple, humble approach of a young officer which you have accepted. We are extremely grateful to you. Your recognition of the academic and intellectual efforts of a young brother from the Northeast. Sir, we are extremely grateful to you. We are proud that you are in a key organization of the setup of the country. We wish you the best and thank you very much again. Professor and Dr. Vijay Tankha from St. Stephen's College, the seed that you planted on the shy boy 10 years ago, we have seen it bloom today. We are extremely grateful to you. The efforts that you have put, I think, have borne good fruit. We are thankful. We are thankful for all the young students that you look after. We are aware that Northeast brings in lots of students to Delhi. St. Stephen's is at the top of that list of colleges. We are thankful that you are there. And once again, thank you very much, Professor, for your guidance. Our thanks to Bloomsbury Publishing for having partnered with Haulianlal on this book. We thank the media who are present, both the print and electronic media. We thank the artists who have presented beautiful songs and entertained us today. And I'd also like to briefly recognize the presence of Pu L.L. Dongel, IPS DGP from Nagaland. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us here. I also know that there are many other senior officers. Apologies for not being able to recognize each one of you by name, but definitely we thank you for your graciousness to be present in this function. It has made it a success for us. It's indeed a great day for us that you could be here with us today. And before I conclude, in fact, allow me to call parents of Haulianlal to the stage. Dr. Thangchin Khoop, please come to the stage. I think the parents really deserve, and Dr. Chin, Haulianlal's mother, I think more than any other parents, for us who come from Northeast, from the small villages, the role of the parents in bringing up a child, in bringing up someone like Haulianlal, I think it's even more unique and special. I think it deserves recognition. Dr. Thangchin Khoop is a medical doctor, consultant in the district hospital. Dr. Chin is also a medical doctor, additional director in the family welfare in Manipur, state government. So we applaud them. And I would request Awan, Haulianlal's wife, to please come on stage. And I'm going to request the chief guest and the guest of honor to kindly, for a group photo, yes. Awan, for those of you who have not seen, wave your hand. Yeah, she's the strength behind the man. I think front will be better. Okay, while they adjust, one round of applause, and I conclude my vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shri Vumluman Walnam. This is what you call saving the best for last. Thank you so much for that wonderful vote of thanks. Let us encourage the young author by buying his book and making it the bestseller. So I request all of you to please purchase one book. And to finally conclude, I would like all of us to stand up for the national anthem, please. Jana Gana Mana Adhinayak Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Punjab Sindhu Gujarat Maratha Ravinda Ujjal Ganga Vindhya Himachal Yamuna Ganga Ujjal Jaladi Taranga Tava Shubh Naame Jage Tava Shubh Ashish Maage Gaye Sab Jaya Gata Jana Gana Mangal Dayak Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Jaya He Jaya He Jaya He Please be seated. Thank you so much for making it a success. And like I said, books are available at the registration counter. Books ka hepi takino le sak Syiemlieh. And the author is available for sound bites as well as to sign the books. Around 10 to 15 minutes we have. So please let us utilize this time that we have. Thank you.
नेक्स्ट तो ये इसका अभी जयपुर जाएंगे और मेरा काम का लगातार करेंगे सो उसका इज कमिंग वो भी अभी तो रीडर्स के पास डिसीजन है जैसे अभी करेंगे वो इट्स एंटायरली द रीडर्स डिसीजन और मेरा किताब ये भी फर्स्ट है ये सक्सेस है सब इसके अलावा मैं दूसरे किताब लिखा है पूरा थोड़ा टाइम उस टॉपिक का what is the nature of perfect मेरा my own